So we have in front of us here the Canadian High Commissioner to Australia, speaking to us from the Canadian and Australian Roundtable on Indigenous Health and Wellbeing. So thank you for chatting to me today.
Hey, good afternoon.
Could you tell me a little bit about your role here and how you got engaged with the Roundtable and the kind of process behind it?
Well, I think I'm a facilitator. At the High Commission here in Canberra, we have run a number of roundtables like this, one in South Australia on Indigenous education, one up in the Northern Territory with Charles Darwin University around Indigenous economic development, and we've brought Canadian and Australian Indigenous and non-Indigenous subject matter experts together to work on common challenges and to identify common opportunities. And this one around health and wellness is I think a very topical one very important to both of our countries at this current time.
Absolutely, and we have some similarities in our history, but also some significant differences. So coming together, I think, is really important.
Very much so.
So can you tell us a little bit about the people you've got speaking today and some of the topics that you covered and why they're significant?
Well, we brought in, this is about public health, but public health delivery and wellness in our Indigenous communities in both Canada and Australia. So we've invited public health experts, we've invited socioeconomic experts, we've research experts, and many Indigenous leaders on both sides of the Pacific to come and really address with substance some of the challenges we're facing as we confront the racist legacy of our colonial legacies and how we need to move beyond that, how we are moving beyond that to greater power sharing in our countries, in our local communities, self-government, self-determination, and how those choices are being taken in our Indigenous communities, and how we need to continue to work on informing public policy. I mean, how do we? The question is, how do we get our federal governments, our state and provincial governments, our municipal governments to really and sincerely and genuinely seek to understand the cultural, the historical, the traditional stories that really are at the heart of our Indigenous communities, to embrace those stories and to seek to genuinely learn and ask what is needed at the local level, and how can we empower local level governance, a free choice and decision making in order to set the right frameworks in place to improve the lives, the general well-being and health of our families, especially with a focus on the generations to come.
When I was down at the Lowitja conference, I heard Chief Wilton Littlechild talk about truth-telling, and I think the Roundtable is part of that process of truth-telling. How do you feel about the process of truth-telling and where we're at, both as Australia and as Canada?
Well, I think we've come a long way. I think there's a longer way to go. I think truth involves listening, but it also needs to involve a genuine desire to learn. And for the non-Indigenous communities in Australia and Canada, I think we need to put more effort into wanting to understand what makes our Indigenous communities great. What is the wonderful story of thousands of years of wellness that was there prior to colonization and failed policies of assimilation. And I think when we get to a place, and I think we are well on the road to being there, when we get to a place where we genuinely understand and appreciate what our First Peoples bring to us as countries, Australia and Canada, and when we get to a place where we realize that we are stronger as countries, when we harness what is best in all of the cultures that make up the fabric of our countries, we will be in a much better place. And so that's where I think truth is taking us, but there's a journey between truth and reconciliation. It's not you hear the truth and then you're reconciled and you move on. I think it's there's so much more to it than that, and I think we're still learning about what that is.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I was thinking when you said that, you mentioned that it's one of those things where we actually have a long way to go, but we've actually come a long way as well. And I think it's actually, we don't often stop and think about how far we've come. As an Aboriginal woman, I have a lot more opportunity now than my mother did, yes. But we still have a long way to go. So I want to say thank you to you for holding this roundtable, because for me as an Aboriginal woman, I see that we have people that are our allies and are our supporters and will support us to actually move forward better. One question I'd like to ask you is, there's been a range of topics spoken about today, but I'd like to see if you could narrow it down to your one key message, take-home message.
Respect. This is a conversation where we all need to genuinely be seeking from the heart, with empathy, to understand and to respect, to celebrate, to appreciate all that our First Nations, Aboriginal, Torres Strait Island communities, Métis, Inuit, what they bring. And I think when we get to a place where we fully respect the communities across our country, then that's where the healing will really take off.
Absolutely, and Nacho's been with us, that's the National Aboriginal Community Controlled Health Organisation, and they've just said thank you to you for bringing together a multi-levelled Indigenous roundtable. So it's something that's being followed around the country, even though we're just here in Canberra.
It's a great honour for us at the High Commission here in Canberra to have been played a role here, and I'm just so pleased with the talent of the experts that we've been able to attract. It tells us that we're onto something good. It tells me that the staff know what right looks like. Yeah. And if we can help people drive towards what right looks like, then we've had a very good day.
And it reinforces what was said today with capacity building in Indigenous communities. Capacity building we need to do, but we still have a lot of capacity in there, so we just need to tap into that.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we sign off to the world?
I'd just like to say that I'm hopeful. In fact, I know that there are going to be actionable outcomes from this roundtable, that there are connections being made in the room today that I know will bear fruit in future in terms of informing better governance, better decision making, better sharing of power. And as a diplomat, anything that brings Australia and Canada more closely together is a very powerful opportunity and a very powerful event. So I look forward to the next spiral in this never-ending partnership between Australia and Canada.
You've just echoed something that Ron said, which we discussed, which was the ripple effects that these kind of events have, the large and the small ones. So looking forward to seeing where it goes from here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.